I just tried to send Rece Davis a small amount for appearing on our show today on Venmo. We are not friends on Venmo, and he is not public as far as I can see. So he's a little better off than John Mateer is this morning.
Send him a check. Rece will take a check. Rece Davis, ESPN Gameday. They're fueling that bird. He's about to jump on it and fly to Ireland. His summer is just about over. What is up, Rece? How are you?
Oh, I'm not going to Ireland this year, man. I went last year. Not going this year.
Fueling that bird. In a couple of weeks, they're going to fly to Columbus, Ohio.
Way to go to Columbus, Ohio. So be there in a couple of weeks. Do have an in-studio show for week 0 prior to the game in Ireland. Farmageddon in Ireland, Iowa State and Kansas State. So looking forward to getting it started, but no point in wishing away the time we have either, right?
I know Columbus is going to be really emotional for you guys. Is there one game day experience that was your favorite for one reason or another?
I mean, I think there are a number of them that leap to mind. The Washington State trip in 2018, I think I probably talked to you guys about that before. It was such a cathartic thing. I believe for Cougar fans, it'd been a 15-year crusade to try to get game day there. So, I remember LC really enjoyed that trip as well because it sort of epitomized what the show means and what he had been the cornerstone of building, that people care enough to really want it to come to their campus. So that's probably the one that will always resonate with me. The best crowd we've ever had in terms of being responsive was last year at Cal. I mean, that was amazing. It was hands down the best and most responsive, engaged crowd we've had in my now 10 plus years on the show. Had great crowds, had a bigger one at James Madison when a Jonas Brothers concert broke out immediately after the show and during it momentarily. But the most responsive, most engaged, most celebratory, funniest crowd was last year at Cal. I mean, so but there have been a lot of great places. Anytime, what was it Kenny Dillingham said the other day, that whenever you praise someone that you are indirectly talking trash about someone else, and so I don't mean it to be that way at the other places, but those are just places that have stood out.
And I would love for you to promote the Not So Fast, My Friend Lee Corso special coming up as well, because before we get to that week 0 football, we got a chance to celebrate Coach in prime time on ESPN, right?
We have. I sat down for a lengthy interview for that a few weeks ago, and it's going to be quite a walk down memory lane. And so, I'm looking forward to seeing the finished product, the people that the producer said they'd spoken to, and the stories that have been shared, and the different things. And I don't know if they ultimately talked to Craig James or not. Craig was one of the original guys on College Gameday, and he was my partner on Thursday nights for a number of years. And Craig told a great story on social media that I'd never heard before, that it would certainly fit in that piece if they ended up talking to him, which I don't know if they did. But he was talking about the early days of College Gameday and getting hotels extraordinarily difficult, and still is, but they've turned it into more of an art form now. And there was a place, he might have said Tallahassee, but where it was is sort of immaterial. LC and Craig James had to share a hotel room. So they're in this dinky, probably the door opens to the parking lot, and they're in there. And Craig said that every night he had heard, and LC had said that he smoked a cigar and took a shot of NyQuil. And so he said, LC said, there he is. Pajamas, pulled up in the bed. He just smoked a cigar, a shot of NyQuil, and said, good night, sweetheart. We'll kill him tomorrow. So, I mean, he's the best, man. And I think they'll walk down memory lane and celebrating his tremendous career, because no one has had a greater impact on the popularity of college football on television, and specifically College Gameday and what it has become, than Lee Corso. And I know people would have loved the sport no matter what, so I'm not suggesting that. But the idea of college football being a morning to midnight television experience is something that was driven largely, and maybe a better way to put it, the thread that pulled it all together was largely Lee Corso. And he did remarkable things in television. He was a great coach, won at levels, at places where it's difficult to win, and places where they hadn't really won at that level before. And the most impactful thing he did was the relationships he built with players. And we've been able to experience that, those of us who have worked with him, the relationships that he has built with all of us.
Rece Davis is with us on the Alexander Shinara Trial Attorneys Hotline. I know this sounds cheesy to some. I don't really care. But that anticipation in the 15 minutes, 10 minutes y'all are doing the picks, because I know kickoff is almost here. The anticipation I get on a Saturday is just, I don't know that I have it most any other time, Rece. And one thing I love about it is that I know you guys, and specifically Coach Corso, since we're talking about him, love college football every bit as much as I do. Like, you guys have that same anticipation. Now, yours is a little different because you're trying to keep this thing on the tracks, but you've got that anticipation knowing kickoff is coming up. So I'm watching guys, specifically Coach Corso, that love this sport every bit as much as I do as a fan.
It's the secret sauce.
Yeah.
It's what has made this show work. It's why it's very difficult to duplicate this show, because you have some of the greatest faces and people who have accomplished things in the game on that set, and yet they have the same energy and passion that the fans have for it. The thing that's a little bit different, and everybody cares about their school. If they didn't care about the school, the team they played for, I would wonder why they did this. But the thing that's a little bit different is that, Kirk doesn't just care about Ohio State. He cares about college football. Pat doesn't just care about West Virginia, loves college football. Same with Desmond in Michigan. And, certainly everyone knows where Nick stands on that. And LC was the same way and is the same way. So I've always felt like that you couldn't really officially have a kickoff until LC's put on the mascot head. And, occasionally you will have the game that kicks off. I know Air Force has done this a few times. For whatever reason, it sticks in my mind. It was them that they've had a kickoff at like 11:30 Eastern time before LC's put on a headgear. And I'm wondering if those results are official, because, the thing, it hasn't, we haven't signaled the ball ready to play yet, Air Force. I mean, wait till the headgear goes on, then the ball is ready to be teed up and ready to play. So that's something that is certainly going to be different once we get to week 2, because it's been such a cornerstone and staple of the entire college football Saturday. But I had a conversation with Lee in Atlanta when we were doing some of the Home Depot obligations over the summer. And I told him, I said, man, even when you're not there, your fingerprints, your influence, what you've built, I said, as long as that show is on television, Lee Corso is going to be a foundational part, and a part that can't be escaped, and shouldn't be escaped, for what that show has become on television.
You mentioned Nick in year 2 with Nick Saban on set, about to start up for you guys. You obviously knew him before, but it's different when you work with someone. What was year 1, the experience like, and what is something you learned about Coach maybe you didn't know before? It
was fantastic. I thought that he would be great. I didn't know he would be extraordinary immediately. He's the best communicator in any setting, television, boardroom, in front of the team, you name it. Giving a speech, he just has a way of communicating that resonates with people. The thing I think I learned about him was, and I knew he had a tremendous sense of humor. What I learned was his willingness to use it. What I also learned was his willingness, I won't even say willingness, his eagerness to use it at your expense if he gets the opportunity, which is great fun. But he can also take it. He likes it when you dig back at him. And he's such an integral part of this show immediately, cares very much about it, wants to get better. And if he can get better, more power to him, because he was sensational last year. And I just look forward to continuing to work with him this year.
He had choice words about my mental capacity. One time we were talking about my golf game, and I won't repeat it on the air, but he was in a very joking way, very upfront about how weak I am mentally. Rece Davis is with us, the guy who transitioned from Fowler to Rece Davis very smoothly as the host of College Game Day. You're great at play-by-play. Was this a dream for you, though, when you were watching early days of Game Day, did you think to yourself, man, I'd love to be the host of Game Day someday?
You know what, Jim? I probably should say yes, but I'm going to tell the truth and say not really. It's not that I, didn't want to, but I didn't set that as a singular goal. I don't know, at least for me, if I could really do that in my career. What I wanted when the time came for that particular contract negotiation, when I moved in the role of hosting Game Day, is I wanted a the most prominent place that made sense in college football, wherever that was, whatever that meant, whether that was, a bigger play-by-play role, or it turned out to be Game Day, which for me is probably the best job in television. So, but it wasn't the singular goal that someday I'm going to host Game Day. I know, like, there are some people, someday I'm going to anchor the nightly news on a network, or, someday I'm going to have my own show with my name on the show. Maybe people, set singular goals like that. I really didn't. I just wanted to be in position to broadcast this sport in a prominent way, and something that was rewarding, personally and professionally. And I was able to find that. And, I've got great guys to work with that make it very rewarding.
This narrative that your guys' first Game Day location is going to be dampened because Fox has this as an 11 a.m. kick, is that a true narrative in your experience?
We've done it so many times. I think where that comes from is the fact that fans, a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of fans don't like the fact that their pregame festivities and tailgating is cut short. They like the excitement and the buildup of the night games, and I get that. But it's also pretty cool to to get things started at that time of morning. I'm not trying to promote our competition, but they took a direction in their strategy that, in my judgment, was pretty smart. That was, that whole window for years in television, with the exception of maybe some late November games, was largely the build-up window. You didn't have big games in that window very often. They saw an opportunity, and they've used it. And we're not the pregame show for ESPN ABC games. We're the pregame show for college football. So it doesn't really matter to us which network a game is on, nor does it really matter to us what time the game kicks. We get a lot of energy from being able to go inside the stadium with noon kicks, so there's a real value to that. But there are also times when it's great to wrap it up at our site on campus out there, and you get that same type of energy, and you can do some things. Occasionally, you can be a little bit limited inside the stadium in terms of execution of elements. So, there's a give and take with all of it. But, this particular one, I think, is going to be special because of some of the things that we have cooked up, so that everybody is sure to get the full Lee Corso experience for his final headgear pick.
AP poll released yesterday. Is there a team we're sleeping on, maybe even specifically in the SEC?
I don't know. You have to sort of define sleeping, I guess. You guys made reference to it earlier. I don't know exactly what's going on.
Give us an Arizona State, unranked last year. They finished seventh in the poll.
Give us one of those.
Well, I don't know. I mean, it would probably be somebody from the Big 12, even though I think Arizona State has some staying power. It would be someone, from the Big 12, because those teams are so tightly pulled together almost every year. It's determined by your outcomes in one-score games. In the regular season last year, Arizona State was 6-1 in one-score games. Kansas was terrible in one-score games early, and then ended up beating 3 of the 4 teams down the stretch that tied for the conference championship, and beat a couple of them fairly soundly. And Kansas was bad in one-score games early. I would say, I don't know if anybody's sleeping on them because of the amount of money that they've spent, but if Texas Tech can keep Baron Morton healthy at quarterback, they've certainly added a lot of pieces. Who knows how that chemistry will be. In the SEC, I don't know that anybody's sleeping on any of these teams, because there's been plenty of attention on John Mateer and how that might elevate Oklahoma, and their defense should be pretty good. Same with Florida and DJ Lagway. Mini sleeping might be Georgia, because I have some questions about Georgia too, about Gunnar Stockton, about lines of scrimmage. They've got, all stars, or as our friend Phil Steele might say, they've got a lot of VHTs, very highly touted on the lines of scrimmage, but they haven't necessarily played a ton. So, I think a team that's ranked that might turn out to be championship level might be Georgia. A team that you're not thinking about as much, it's still ranked but not up there, would be Texas Tech. And I think another team right now, I do think they snuck into the poll, although I didn't rank them in the preseason. Look, Tennessee, if Tennessee's quarterback situation is okay, and they find some replacements for their strength on the defensive front last year was the fact that they ran 1,000 guys at you. It was really good. Well, a lot of those guys are gone. More snaps for other guys, or do they find guys to backfill and they're still just as good? Tennessee could be a team that I don't have ranked right now, but easily could make a charge up the standings if you go, oh, okay, Heupel's an offensive genius, and Aguilar, or one of the young quarterbacks, they picked this up, they're good, and here we go. But, I think you have to wait and see. But that's a theme across the country. There are so many. I like this team. Let's see what happens at quarterback. Alabama, Georgia, Notre Dame. I'm not putting Texas in that category. I'm pretty sure we know what we're getting there. It might not be a completely finished product, but everything will be fine. Just kind of looking down the list, Miami's got a little something to prove, although certainly Carson Beck has played a lot. Ohio State is the obvious one. Ohio State, even with the guys they're replacing, loaded everywhere. But what about the quarterback? And, Ohio State and Georgia, to me, are a lot alike. They're loaded. They have some questions, or some inexperienced guys, relatively speaking, guys who played. Georgia has guys who have played on lines of scrimmage. They're just elevating their role. Ohio State, the same. Ohio State's got a lot of transfers on the offensive front. Notre Dame's loaded, waiting to see who wins the quarterback race there. Oregon should have a guy. Dante Moore's played at UCLA, but really getting his first shot at Oregon. It's a recurring theme, really, throughout these highly ranked teams, and it might open the door for some of those teams that are outside the top 25, or just barely made it in, to make a charge if things come together well for them, particularly at that position.
Always love how Atlantic will casually ask you to pick out this year's Arizona State, and I always like to point out that if you could do that, when I'm walking past the Bellagio, it would likely be towards a Caesar-esque Rece Davis statue.
Well, you know what? Well, what happens is, last year I thought I'd found them. I picked Kansas to go to the playoff last year. That's why I'm pretty in tune with what happened to Lance Leipold's team last night. I picked him to win the Big 12 and go to the playoff because of, and I'm not casting aspersions at the Big 12. That's a really great conference to watch. It's high level ball. All the teams are really, really similar. In some ways, it's not style of play, but in terms of variance and how much separation there is among the teams. It's a lot like the NFL. Make a play here, don't make a play there. Cost you the game, win the game. And, the Big 12's fun. I just picked the wrong team. I picked Kansas last year, and it turned out to be Dillingham's team. I spent some time with Kenny a few weeks ago out there and was around a lot of their guys. Got to replace Scatteraboo. That's tough. He was like, 60% of their offense. But, man, I think they're going to be good. They've got veterans up front. Sam Levitt's ready to take that another step in his evolution as a quarterback. Got a terrific receiver. Running back transferred in, Kanye Udo from Army. That their center, Ben Coleman, I said, what's the difference in having Udo back there as opposed to Scatteraboo? He said, there's no arguing in the backfield. I said, what? He said, Cam and Sam argued right up till the snap most of the time. And, about what the protection was, which way it was supposed to slide, what they were doing. He said, Kanye really doesn't do that. And I said, well, that's the military background. He's going to take the order.
That's right.
He's going to execute the plan.
Yeah.
Right?
Hey, Rece.
He's a really good player, by the way. He'll do a good job for them.
29 of the last 31 years, the top 10 AP team has finished unranked. That's the hard one to predict. Try predicting that one. A top 10 team finishing unranked. It happens so often, 29 of the last 31 years. So,
good
luck.
That's the impossible one, because you wouldn't rank them there if you
That's right.
thought that.
Yeah.
It would probably be, I mean, this is almost absurd to say, but I mean, maybe Oregon or who? Wait. I'm looking at my vote. Let me look at. Let me look at.
I know it's history, Reese. You can't find one this year. It's not going to
All right,
happen this year.
No, here we go. You know what? You know what I'm going to say?
Okay.
And this is probably going to. They already think I don't like them, and it's just not true. If I had to pick one, I'd probably say Miami.
Yeah.
I don't really believe it, but if I had to pick one that was going to be unranked, it would be, maybe Beck's not healthy, maybe it doesn't work out, some of the players they've lost. But I really, you're right, it's going to happen. Someone's going to get into a tailspin and it's going to get sideways on them. But all the way to unranked is really, really hard to see. Even, even for Notre Dame, if Notre Dame doesn't figure out the quarterback situation, it just feels like they're too good everywhere else to fall all the way out. Even with a pretty significant schedule that they play. They're at Miami, they've got A&M, they're at Arkansas, play Boise State. They've got USC at home. Schedule wise, it would probably be Notre Dame, but I think they're way too talented for that.
2 weeks from Saturday, you'll see Rece and the entire crew for Coach's final show, Coach Corso's final show there in Columbus, Ohio. It will be an emotional, fun time, and we'll have kickoff right after that. Rece, thank you very much. Kind with your time. We always appreciate it, my friend.
All right. Good to see you guys.
All right, buddy. You too. Take care. Rece Davis with us on the Alexander Shinara Trial Attorneys Hotline.